You are listening to the Hike Files podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Zitzelman. What's going on? Episode 4. In this episode, we're going to talk about the lost 7 hours of the Black Forest Trail, men in bear suits in China, and a big win for camping in the UK. All that's coming up right now. Let's get into the podcast. So going to do story time this week. And what I'm going to talk about is the 7 hours in between the two clips in this week's video on the Black Forest Trail. The 7 hours in between the part where I get into the hammock to go to sleep, and then the next clip where I'm getting up, we're up and we're packing down. A little lead up to that, if you haven't seen the video, we did a backpacking trip on the north loop of the Black Forest Trail. We started in the Algerine Wild area, and on day 1, we hiked all the way through Algerine down to Slate Run. It's about 13 and a half miles from where we parked to where we camped. And a little bit in the back of my head, my concern was that we were going to get down to this campsite and there'd be people who just kind of overnight camped in. It was a Friday, and the camp is right near a road. It's right near a inn, and it's right outside of town. So I was kind of concerned that we get down there and we wouldn't have a campsite, and we'd either have to turn around and go back up the mountain a little ways or hike on further than we really wanted to find camp. As we got to camp, though, realized nobody was there. We were the only people camping right in that area. So we set up and we walked into town. I use the term town loosely. There's a general store. There's an inn manor. It's like an restaurant kind of place. And there's a cemetery and some hunt cabins. And right in that immediate area, that's about it. There's a rail trail that goes through. The Pine Creek Rail Trail goes through not too far from there. So I was thinking, well, since there's nobody here, now the next concern is that this inn, this restaurant, might be a little loud for a while as we get settled in for camp. We decided to walk into town. We were going to go over to the general store originally and just see if we could grab like ice cream or something like that. Just get something. And as we walked by this inn, we saw that they have a restaurant and it's open to the public. And we went in, and right on the door it said we close at 8 o'clock. So in my head, I was like, oh, great, this place is going to be quiet after 8. We can get some food. We'll get back to camp, get a good night's sleep, hit the trail first thing in the morning, be energized and recuperated and ready to go. Because also it was the hottest day of the year on Friday. At one point, my thermal drop read 96 degrees, and they were calling for heat index into the hundreds. Now, we were up higher, so I think that that high temperature on my thermal drop just because of direct sun. But, yeah, it was a warm day. So we eat, we wash up a little bit, we head back to camp. It's only a quarter mile into camp, so it's not like it's really far. We can see the lights in the parking lot from camp. We hike back, we get to camp. It's like a little after 8:30, something like that, in the hammock, and ready to go to bed. And it was hot, so sweaty. I was sticking to the hammock. It was really way too warm, and we're right by the water, so it's kind of humid. But as soon as we get in the hammocks, we start hearing music play right up across the creek. Now, the Black Forest Trail comes down from where we were, goes alongside that inn, and then makes a hairpin turn and goes up the other side of the creek, directly from where we were. And it goes in between the creek and a road. And it follows that for probably about 1.5 miles, that road. And along that road, there are several hunt camps and semi-permanent residences up there. And it looks like up on top of the hill, there's a larger camp, but it's way up top. So we start hearing music playing, and I'm hoping it's just someone at the trailhead, because the official trailhead is right across from us on the other side of the river. And I'm hoping it's someone at the trailhead who just got back to the car. They're start up their car, they're getting their gear situated in their vehicle, and they're getting ready to leave, and they just got their music playing. That's what I'm hoping. But that's not what happens. We then start hearing people talking and getting a little louder, and you can obviously tell that they're getting a little drunker, and it's getting louder and louder and louder the people get, the louder the music gets. And it was very bassy, so that's mostly what you could hear is just this constant all night, just the drums. And it was, maybe you're a fan of country music. I personally am not. The drum beats are very just like doom, 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 like all the same drum beat all night. And then people hee-hawing and yelling and screaming. It just kept getting louder and louder and louder. So we're kind of laying there thinking maybe this will stop by like 11 o'clock if it's like an event or something like that. 11 o'clock comes and goes, music keeps playing. Midnight comes and goes, music keeps playing. And it's getting louder. 1 o'clock, right before 1 o'clock, it starts to rain. It starts to rain pretty hard. And the music stops. And I just think, oh, thank God. So I close my eyes. I start to drift off. And maybe a half hour later, it starts back up again. And the music starts. And it's louder than it was before. And obviously, while it was raining and they weren't playing music, they were just getting drunker and they were getting louder. And this just kept on going. Like 1:30, 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm fed up. I'm extremely pissed. There's like one point where it got a little quiet. I'm like yelling from the hammock, like for them to shut up. Obviously, they don't hear me or they don't care. I get out of the hammock. I'm down by the creek. Every time the music stops, I yell up at them, shut up. They don't stop. So I grab my phone. I walk out to where I know I have signal. I call the cops. The first officer I reached, he didn't cover that area. Second officer I reached, he was off duty. There's no other numbers to call, so couldn't get anything that way. So we decide we're already pretty pissed. Not going to get any sleep anyway. And just because they've stopped or they were getting quieter doesn't mean they're going to stay quiet. So we decided to pack our stuff down and head out of camp. So I recorded a little bit at camp as we packed down. And then we hit the road. And we literally, instead of taking the trail, it's dark. It had rained a little bit. So we decided we'll take the road, follow the road up. It'll be a little faster. And it's a little less likely to slip on rocks or roots. We did do that section in November, the last time we did it, and it was really rooty. And I remember there's a couple spots where even in the daylight, like I was sliding. So we decided we'll just take the road, but we would walk by all those hunt cabins. And like I'm looking at everyone, like if I see one that looks like it's the place, like if I see people like hanging out outside, I'm going up and I'm going to say something. We never saw anything that could have been the place. There's just a few spots where there was a couple extra cars, but we didn't see anything that looked there. There had been a party there. So we continued our hike, and then the rest of it is documented in video. But the thing I don't get, like I understand you're going to have it was a Friday night, somebody's going to have a party for whatever reason. That was so extraordinarily loud. And there are other houses there. There's people that live there. What is the thought process in somebody's head that makes them think, and obviously they're drunk, so at some point they're not thinking anymore. But how do you go that long playing your music that loud, being that loud around other houses and think that's okay? It wasn't even, I don't think it was hikers. I don't think it was somebody, there was another camp across the creek, but it didn't sound like it was coming from down low, like at the level we were at. It sounded like it was up on top or on the side of the mountain that we hiked up along. It's absolutely crazy to me that people could be that rude, that inconsiderate, and not even to the hikers or backpackers. Chances are they don't give a crap about anybody who's out on the trail. But I did see someone walk by our camp. So the campsites sit maybe 150 feet down off the trail. There's like a little side trail you go down to. And I did see someone walk by, and I know they turned around and they started heading back up that way, and I know they heard me. They had to, because they were right across the creek at one point when I yelled. So they may have gone up and been like, hey, look, we might want to turn this down because there's somebody just going to come up here and freak out. Maybe not. But the fact that it takes somebody to like start yelling at you to realize that it's 3 o'clock in the morning and people are trying to sleep, even, not on the trail, but in their homes, there's houses there. What are you thinking? That's the 7 hours, the 7 lost hours of that hike, because I did not record any of that, and probably good that I didn't, because I was not a happy camper, literally. Have you heard about the Chinese sun bears? Have you heard about this? This isn't hiking related at all. It is outdoors, so that's why I'm talk about this for a minute. So this popped up the other day. There's a zoo in China that has these sun bears, and let me switch over here. The Chinese zoo, I'm sure I'm going to murder this pronunciation, so I apologize. The Hangzhou Zoo, I think that's how it's pronounced. But they've got these bears called sun bears, and they look like bears, obviously, but they've got like this, like a gold colored patch on their chest and their snouts. And there's these videos going around showing these sun bears, and sun bears apparently like to stand on their hind legs. Not sure why. Maybe it's because their natural habitat's got high grass and that's how they can see over. I don't know, but they like to stand on their hind legs. And so there's these videos going around of the zoo with these sun bears, and the bears are standing up and they're kind of like waving. They got their paws up and they're like waving at the people. So people are saying that these bears are just people in suits, and their proof is that there's wrinkles. That there's wrinkles in their skin. Like the fur is hanging off very loosely, is what they're saying. So I'll put a couple links to some Google searches about this. And I'll see if I can find some good pictures to link to some of these stories. But the one picture is kind of from behind the bear, like behind and left of the bear as it's standing up. And they're pointing out that like down by the butt where it's standing up, it's wrinkled. And that, so it must be a suit, because animals don't get wrinkles, right? Right? Animals don't wrinkle, not at all. The next link I'll put in the show notes is of a Shar-Pei, which is, I believe Shar-Peis are a Chinese, I think from, Chinese guard dogs. They are super wrinkly. And as soon as I saw this picture of this sun bear, the first thing I thought of was a Shar-Pei. I was like, yeah, that's just the way their skin folds. That's just the way it happens. There's another zoo that just came out, I think it was in the UK, that have sun bears. And they put up video of their sun bears, and they stand up and they do the same thing. If you just look at the picture and you see this thing standing up, you go, oh, that's got to be a person in a suit. But as soon as they get down on all fours and you see the way their head moves, it's a bear. If you've ever seen a bear out in the wild, even black bears, their head is kind of, they got like their head and neck are kind of connected in the way it kind of moves. So their head sits way far out. Their neck, they got a really long neck. You generally don't see it when they're sitting. But if you think of like your traditional picture of like a grizzly bear, they got that hump up behind their head. That's their neck. So it's all you're seeing. So the person had to be looking out through this gold place on the chest, gold fur. And I guess that would be a good place to hide like eye holes, but these are just bears. I don't understand why people think anyone would be trying to lie about the existence of a bear and then put men in suits to make it look like the bear exists. If you don't have, if the bears don't exist, you just don't put them in your zoo. That's pretty simple, I would think. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments, or shoot me an email, something. Let me know what you think about the sun bears and why you think people think they're fake. Again, the links to some of those pictures and stories will be in the show notes. And this last little bit here is international hiking news. How about this? This isn't something I think I've done yet. So here in the U.S., especially here in Pennsylvania, in the Northeast in general, and I know like out in the western states, you've got a lot of BLM land, the Bureau of Land Management, where you've got just room to hike and backpack and camp and do all that. Here in Pennsylvania, we got state forest lands and all these places that we can go hike and backpack and camp. And in New York, you got the Catskills and the Adirondacks and all their state forests. There's just so much land that we have, and we kind of take it for granted. In England, it's a little bit different, and they do have a national park out there called Dartmoor. Yeah, Dartmoor National Park. Now, their national parks are a little bit different there, where it's not federally owned land like we have here for our national parks. Their national parks are made up mostly of private land with the people's rights to outdoor activities generally preserved on those lands. So they can hike through, day hike, do things like that, visit some of these historic sites. I think it was 2 years ago, a couple of the majority landholders in Dartmoor, however it works legally there, they basically sued to stop people from being able to what they call wild camp, primitive camp on those lands. And in order to do any kind of camping, they had to get permission from the landholder. In order to do any kind of camping, it had to get permission from the landowner, and these landowners weren't giving their permission usually. So it was like the last place they could really go and camp. Just this week, one of their other courts stepped in and overturned that and said no. I forget if I read that correctly, one of the reasons they used to stop people from camping was saying that camping wasn't an outdoor activity because they were using tents and sleeping inside the tent, which means that they weren't outside doing the activity. They weren't sleeping outside, so therefore it was not an outdoor activity and they couldn't camp. And this court was like, that's ridiculous. Of course it's an outdoor activity. And they overturned it and they opened it back up for wild camping. So that's a win for hikers and campers and outdoor enthusiasts in England. And hopefully there's, from what I've read, there's talk of making a more permanent, like, right to roam law in England, so that things like that can't happen again, and giving people the right to be able to go out and use outdoors. Now, I can kind of see it from both ways. If you're looking at it from like playing devil's advocate here, I get it. If I had private property and people were just showing up and camping on it, that would, yeah, you wouldn't want that. But it is also a national park, and I think the law states it can't be developed or in use land. If it's not developed or in use, like obviously if there's a house there, you can't go set up in your yard, and you wouldn't want to set up that close to somebody's house. But if they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of acres, and there's spots that are just undeveloped and wild, and it's a national park, yeah, it's one of those, how would you feel about it yourself if you own that property? I guess it was thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of acres that you have. Maybe it's a lot of thousands, but in a national park and you're not using it, I'm sure there's some kind of there's got to be some kind of benefit to allowing that from the government, I would assume. Maybe not. I don't know. There's plenty of places here in the U.S. where camping may not be allowed, but there are spots, even from in-state forest, where trails leave the state forest and go into private property to come back around in the state forest land or state park land or whatever. There will be clearly posted signs that say, this is private property, please stay on the trail. Access here isn't guaranteed. It's privileged by the landowner. So you take a little extra care when you're going through there. You don't make a mess. If you see something left behind, you pick it up. It's common courtesy. And from what I've seen of YouTubers who are wild camping in England, they go above and beyond to make sure the area, it looks exactly the way it is. Like, leave no trace. Like, I see these guys that they'll make their fire, they'll set up their tents, they'll do whatever they're doing, and in the morning they break down their tent, they disassemble their fire ring, they churn up the dirt, they put duff back over it so you can't tell there was a fire there. If they had to clear out leaves for their tent, like on the ground, they put the leaves back. Like, they really do a nice job of making sure the campsites that they're using look the way that they were, sometimes better. They'll clean up, they find like a piece of garbage laying to make sure that's cleaned up. And I think things like that go a long way to ensure that they can use that property. You see it anywhere you go. There's always people who decide, I don't want to carry this crap back out, and they just leave it. Now, when we were on the Black Forest Trail, we came across a campsite where there was a sleeping bag, like a Mountain House meal bag, and tent poles kind of in a pile. And they were soaking wet. We were just like halfway through the first day. And if we were closer to somewhere where we could have gotten it out, we would have taken it out, but we had no way of getting it out of there. We didn't have a bag big enough to put this stuff. But we did notice it looked like there was drag marks of some kind on the trail leading up to it. So I don't know if someone needed to be rescued or something happened and they had to get out quick. So hopefully they're coming back to get their stuff. I don't know. But yeah, in an emergency, sometimes things get left behind. But whenever possible, you try to make sure things look better when you left than when you got there. That's going to do it for episode 4. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you've got anything you want to know about or hear me jabber about, let me know. You can contact me at hike.files@gmail.com. Hikefiles.com on the website. There's a contact form there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below, or just however you want to reach out to me, go ahead. I do have an Instagram page up that I'm not really doing much with. I kind of wanted to do that so I could try Threads, but not really sure how that's going to work out. So we'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Talk to you in the next.